This week, we're with Scott Sutton, Special Assistant to Head Coach Steve Lutz, and thanks for being here. And your life has been basketball. So what's been the best thing about it? I mean, this has been from day one.
You know, probably going back and being able to spend so much time with my father and my brothers, for that matter. You know, we grew up around the game. Our routine was go to school. My dad or my mom would pick us up. If she couldn't pick us up, my dad would have a manager come get Sean and I, and we'd head to, at that time, Barnhill Arena in Fayetteville, Arkansas, and sit there and watch practice and shoot around and play one-on-one, and just be able to see him in his work environment and how hard he worked, his relationships with his players, how much he cared for his players, and then not even to mention the hundreds and hundreds of pregame talks and halftime talks and postgame talks. So I think that aspect was probably the thing that I'll, as a child growing up, will remember forever. And I was blessed to be able to do this as a profession too. And I took so much of what I learned from my father, how he treated his players and how he treated his staff and fans and media, from him.
Yeah. Did you ever give any thought to doing anything else?
Yeah, I did.
You did?
You know, I've told the story a lot, but, my dad and mom did not want us to go into coaching. Oh. I think early on they realized this probably wasn't going to happen with Sean, that Sean was born to be a coach. And, I think my dad was smart knowing that this is a hard profession. 95% of coaches out there didn't have the career that he had, where there was 99% was good or great, and maybe a small percentage wasn't so good. And he realized that wasn't the case. And it's a hard on, not only on yourself personally and professionally, but it's really hard on your family, how that affects your wife and your children. And so they tried to steer me away from coaching, but I think once I realized that this was something that I had great passion for, then he was all in for it and, helped me throughout my career.
So how old were you when U.S. Reed hit the shot? And tell us about that day. For those who don't know, Arkansas, 1981 NCAA tournament against defending champion Louisville in Austin. U.S. Reed hits a half-court shot at the buzzer. Sometimes I just watch it on YouTube because it's just so awesome, and knowing you guys were a part of that, so walk us through that, because that's one of the great plays in the history of the game.
It is. I was able to be on the bench in Austin at the drum, 10 years old. I think Louisville hit a shot to put them up one with 4 or 5 seconds left, and they inbound to U.S. Nowadays, I'm not sure. They probably have a better play because it wasn't the greatest of plays, because they threw it to him and they kind of put a soft press on him, and he kind of weaved and dribbled and almost like took his time and got right before half court and just chunked a shot up. And it's one of those moments where you're watching the ball and you're like, oh, we're going to lose, and all of a sudden, bam, you win the game, and everybody just went crazy. And I just remember weaving my way through the cheerleaders and both teams and both coaches, and somehow finding my way to the locker room, and it was a great celebration.
Oh, I can't imagine. What was it like playing here, playing for your dad? I mean, we're sort of walking through everything, but I just, knowing sort of how you grew up, being around it, now all of a sudden, now I get to play for my dad. You get to play for him at his alma mater.
Yeah, it was really cool. I probably was fortunate that Sean went first, because I think my dad was tougher on him. I know he was. He said this all the time, and he learned a lot by coaching Sean. And then when he got to me, I think he knew how to coach me better. Sean was kind of the guinea pig, and I think my dad always thought he needed to be harder on Sean than some of the other players, maybe for Sean to gain their respect. But it was awesome. I probably I wasn't the most talented player, and I came here as a walk-on and played with unbelievable teammates. That's a thing that I'll cherish. I mean, obviously getting to play for my dad and being every day for 3 straight years seeing him for several hours of the day was awesome, and something you'll never, very few get that opportunity. But the teammates, the Brooks Thompsons and the Randy Rutherfords, Brendan Manzer, Scott Pierce, Bryant Reeves. I mean, we had a great group of guys that really cared for each other, hung out off the floor, socialized quite a bit on campus, and I look back and I think that helped with some of the crowds as far as the student body. I mean, what they did the first 2 years, getting to the Sweet 16 after not being in the NCAA tournament one time for, was it 25 years, I think, before my father got there. But, we were out on campus, and we knew a lot of the frats and got to hang out with a lot of different people throughout campus. And I think our students felt invested in that team, and they came out and supported us. But great teammates, great staffs, and obviously getting to play for my father was unbelievable.
You talked about your dad and how he taught you how to basically run things, how to treat people, how to treat players, coaches, fans, media, etc. From a basketball standpoint, when you think about what he did and how he did it, what do you feel like was his absolute greatest strength from a basketball standpoint? Something that still really has endured the game even up to this point in time.
Well, he was so good at so many different things as Mr. Iba was, and he always gave so much credit to Mr. Iba. But I think just his teams were so disciplined; they were going to do it his way. He butted heads with a lot of folks along the way, a lot of great players along the way. The Darrell Walkers and Alvin Robertsons at Arkansas, and then, gosh, the Byron Houstons and Brooks Thompson. I remember when Brooks, he was a redshirt from A&M, and my dad just broke his game down and said, "Hey, you're going to do it this way, or you're not going to play for me." And what it did was it made those guys better players, and as a return, it made our team a better team. And I go on with Desmond Mason. You hear the stories that before cell phones, Desmond was being hard-headed, and my dad would say, "I'm going to call your dad right now and tell him you're not doing what I tell you to do." And he picked up that phone, the old phone, and dialed his number and called Desmond Mason's dad right in the middle of practice. And so I think the discipline that showing up every single day and outworking his players. There wasn't a day, I'm sure very few days, that he didn't show up here at 8 o'clock in the morning at Gallagher Ive Arena wearing a suit and ready to work. And as far as basketball, he was such a great man-to-man defensive coach. He preached the things that I always tried to preach to my teams were shot selection, taking care of the basketball, and then rebounding the basketball and sharing the basketball. You do those things, you have a chance to be successful. You have a chance to be a really good, connected basketball team.
I thought it was interesting. I had the great fortune to watch practice on a regular basis those final years when he was coaching. He taught in little sayings and parables. And the one that always jumps out is walking the dog, which you can explain what that means. That's basically making sure a defender on the opposite side stays occupied. He taught in those little sayings that I think everybody could relate to. Even somebody just watching practice could say, "Oh, wow, I get what he's saying." Yeah. And it made total sense. I thought that was a really cool thing that he did. It simplified it, I would guess, for everybody. They could picture what he was trying to say.
No doubt. Walking the dog is, like you said, the ball's opposite of you, and your man is in help position. You want to occupy him. You want to make him thinking, okay, what's this guy going to do? And if you just sit there, the defender can stand there and see both the ball and man. But if you walk the dog up and down a little bit, guy has to shift his eyes and maybe move a little bit, and that may be the difference in getting a great look or getting a bad look.
Yeah, oh, no doubt about that. As you think back about your career, what's been most fulfilling for you?
Oh, gosh. I mean,
coaching and playing, the whole thing?
I think playing, just like I mentioned, playing for my dad, playing with guys that ended up being some of my best friends. Our senior year didn't end like we wanted it to. I thought we were talented enough we had 2 first-round draft picks in Brooks and Country, and we blew a big lead against University of Tulsa in the second round down in Oklahoma City. But coaching, I think the relationships you have with your former players, obviously the great wins that we had, making the NCAA tournament several times. I'd be remiss not to mention, going to Allen Fieldhouse and beating Coach Self in Kansas was a great win, not only for me and our team, but also for ORU's program and university. So you do this long enough, you have great moments, and you have some moments that hurt. But that's the great thing about basketball. You get a chance to do it again here in a few days, and we had a tough one the other night, but we get to bounce back, and that's what I always say is the great thing about basketball. You don't have to wait until next Saturday. You get to do it here in a couple of days.
Oh, yeah, no question about that. Is there anything about Coach Lutz that's like your dad?
A lot. Very, very disciplined person. He's as hard of a worker as I've ever been around. He is demanding. It's going to be his way. He's not afraid to get on guys. And I think nowadays there's less and less coaches that really demand and make a point of what they're trying to get across. Some guys, I don't want to say are soft, but they're hesitant to get on. Kids these days probably don't handle criticism quite as well as maybe in the past. And it's funny, every generation is like that. I remember my dad telling us, "Oh, you guys, you wouldn't believe what Mr. Abba used to do to us." And that's kind of the case now. But Coach Lutz he's not afraid to get on and criticize, but he does it in a way that I think the great coaches do. And 2 guys I thought were the best were my dad and Bill Self, as far as really getting after their players in a constructive way, not demeaning them, not embarrassing them, but getting their point across, and then at the end of the day, making sure that person knows that, hey, I'm doing this to help you. I'm trying to make you a better player, and in return, you're going to make us a better team. And whether you put your arm around them and hug them and say, hey, I care about you. But those guys did that, and Coach Lutz does the same.
What's the best thing you can do to help him? What's the best thing that you do to help him, Coach Lutz?
Oh, I don't know. I've had so much experience, and certain things, whether it's not necessarily during games, but maybe we don't need to go as long today. Maybe so-and-so, these guys are we've practiced 10, 12 straight days. Maybe we take a step back. Because that's one thing that he's old school in that way too, that his practices are long. And, I laughed at, we used to have, it was normal to go 3 hours, and I hadn't had a 3-hour practice in a long time until I started working for Coach Lutz.
We're back to the old school.
But as the season's gone on, those practices have gotten shorter. But
sure,
yeah, I don't know. I'm just there anyway to bounce ideas off. And he's great about it. I think he's surrounded himself with a tremendous staff. And the thing that he does is he wants input from everybody. It doesn't matter if you're a GA or if you're the associate head coach. He wants your ideas, your thoughts. If you have advice or a suggestion, he wants that.
That's Scott Sutton on the Orange Power Pod.